Good morning. All right. A lot of windows up today. Okay, here we go. Week 9. We have a shorter week this week because of conferences. So we're going to be discussing some more of the Romantic expression in comparison to classic. And we're going to be studying a little bit about Schubert and two of his more famous songs and how song works in the Romantic. So I think we should start kind of where we left off. We left off last week talking about classic versus romantic forms. So let's read 14 and 15, and then we are going to do a little bit more comparison with classic. So let's scroll down to R14. All right, so we talked a little bit about forms last week, so we kind of know about that. Expression over form, form over expression. Okay, dynamics. So that's one of our major basic elements of music, right? Romantic composers greatly extended the range of loudness and softness in their music. Classical composers did not often go further than piano and forte, but in romantic works, it is quite common to see scores with 3 Fs, 4 Fs, or 3 Ps. The dynamics change more often in romantic works, and the changes are sometimes unexpected. So Berlioz, who is a famous romantic composer, he was asked in an interview one time, Maestro, why do you put 6 Fs? Why do you put 6 Fs? That seems a little extreme. And he said that I have to put 6 Fs to get 1, right? So part of it is that the musicians and the composers were having a conversation about how the music ought to go. And over time, in order to get the extremes, in order to get the players to play in an extreme way, sometimes they had to write these kind of extreme dynamic markings, right? So if 2 Fs, fortissimo, is very loud, imagine what 6 Fs is supposed to sound like, right? Okay, tempo and expression. Romantic music has a greater range of tempo than does music from the classical period. The favorite moderate andante tempo of the earlier era gives way to a long, leisurely, slow movements, and there are more changes of tempo within movements, creating different moods. Also, new in the Romantic period is the concept of tempo rubato. Rubato means robbed or borrowed in Italian, and the practice of playing a piece rubato means that the player can adjust the rhythm slightly within a phrase, slowing it down a little in one place and speeding up in another, but always balancing out by the end of the phrase. For a pianist, for instance, this could mean keeping the beat strictly within the left hand and making the adjustments to the rhythm in the right. Composers did not usually mark rubato in their scores, but the practice is documented by recordings made at the turn of the last century by performers who were trained in the Romantic era. Rubato was applied to almost every score in this period, and the performer's sensitive use of rubato is still considered a mark of his or her artistry. Okay, so let's go to our classic versus romantic notes. Okay, so we already have some things here. So we're learning a little bit more. So remember, extremes. So what did we learn about here? So we have tempo meter. So we have extremes, more extremes, sudden changes in speed. Remember, tempo means speed. Okay, dynamics, use of extremes like F, 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 and beep, 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 beep. Okay, so very loud, very soft. Okay, and also we get tempo rubato. New, that's a new thing. Now, if we have a terms list somewhere, our terms list must be Well, maybe we don't have a terms list for romantic yet. So let's get a terms list going. Tempo rubato. The bending of the speed at the performer's will. Just, yeah, you can say these things any way you like, but so what we're trying to say is the performer can bend the speed however they like. That's tempo rubato. Okay. All right, and that's our classical, so we can get rid of that. Yes, I want to save that. Okay. Romantic composers did mark their works with many great new indications of the way they wanted their music to be played. A whole new vocabulary sprang up, words like cantabile in a singing tone, maestoso, dolce, con amore, gioioso. Tempo markings also became more expressive. Instructions like allegro agitato or adagio dolente, a grieving adagio, are frequently found on romantic scores. Okay. So for their, again, tempo, more detailed and expressive tempo markings, such as allegro agitato or cantabile. Right, so allegro means fast, agitato means agitated, cantabile means in a singing style or like singing, canta, right? From those of you who remember your Latin. Okay, good. Melody. Notice it's going through all of our basic elements. How about that? Doesn't that work nicely? Romantic melodies are usually longer than classical ones, so they have time to build up to a strong climax, and they appeal more to the emotions. I'm trying to figure out what those last letters are. And they appeal more to the emotions. Some are strong and robust, others pensive and sad. In addition, the Romantics developed the principle of thematic unity, which meant using some of their themes throughout an entire work, even ones with several movements. Sometimes they would also use variations on a recurring theme, but never in a typical theme and variations form of the classical period. But perhaps the most recognizable characteristic of Romantic music is its lyrical quality. People always recognize the themes from the music of this period because many of them are so singable. The music appealed to audiences and is still popular among concert goers to this day. Okay, so let's talk about melody. So we already had that they were longer. They used thematic unity, which means that that their themes would reoccur. Okay. All right. And so like they would use their themes to unite the piece, if that makes sense. They were extremely singable. We also call that lyrical. Okay. Memorable and beloved even today. All right. Again, I'm putting these things in my words. You feel free to put them in your words. Harmony. There were important developments in harmony during the Romantic period. Composers used harmony to bring out the emotions in the melody and for color and atmosphere. Instead of restricting themselves to melodies and harmonies in the traditional major-minor key system, they explored chromaticism, which used all 12 notes in the octave. They experimented with new chord forms and combinations that could evoke different moods. Increasing chromaticism meant greater dissonance and tension, and the idea of a stable central key that the music had always returned to became less important than it had been in the classical period. Okay, so for harmony, we're using chromaticism. There we go, there's a C in there. Okay, chromaticism. All right, now we're gonna need that in our terms list too. So tempo rubato, chromaticism is breaking away from the major minor system of the classic, using all 12 notes in the system more freely. This increased the potential for expression and more descriptive music making. So what do I mean by this? So for example, in the classical period, if you wanted to talk about something being sad, well, you could do that, but you were so constricted by the rules of the harmony that it was not that sad. It was kind of sad. And so what the Romantics were trying to do was to do something really wild and really different. You had to break some of the rules. But then you got things that were extra sad, right? Or extra happy. You got more of those extremes, right? So maybe we could put allows for more extreme emotions or expression. Again, whatever words that work for you, please use them. Okay. Tone color. Tone color refers to the quality of the sound played by a particular instrument compared to the sound of another instrument playing the same pitch. I've been using the word timbre instead of tone color, but it's just the same thing. For instance, if a clarinet and a trumpet both play middle C, the sound quality is quite different. Romantic composers worked with tone color to a far greater extent than had been done before, and sound quality was as important an aspect of music for them as melody, rhythm, and form. Okay, so we need to go over, they said tone color. I'm happy to add that into my little tone color timbre. For romantic composers, why can't I spell today? For romantic composers, timbre was as important as rhythm, melody, and harmony. They very carefully chose the instruments for their unique colors. All right. That's kind of an instrumentation too, but that's good. Okay. And that's the end of our romantic expression reading. Great. Okay, next I think we're gonna talk about Schubert a bit. Okay, yes, R16 through 19. I think there's quite a few pictures in there. R16 through 19. Oh, okay, good. So we were just going on to song and then Schubert. Okay, great. So as we're talking about song this week, so this is going to be more attached to the listening lab. So here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to put, since this is like the history part, I'm going to put 16 and 17 on the listening lab. So we're going to talk about songs in the listening lab, and that's what the pianos and songs are about. So for the rest of this video, we're just going to skip to the Schubert pages. So we'll go through the Schubert pages, and then on the listening lab recording, I will have the piano and the song pages, okay? So, all right. So for the romantic songs, we are talking about Schubert. He was by far the most prolific romantic song composer. Franz Schubert was born in Vienna, the son of a schoolmaster. He studied violin with his father and piano with his older brother. At the age of 11, his beautiful singing voice got him admitted into the Vienna Imperial Court Chapel Choir, and he studied at the school where the court singers were trained. He played in the school orchestra, studied with the court organist, and took composition lessons from Antonio Salieri, the famous Viennese court composer, continuing to study with him even after leaving the choir. Okay, so Schubert came from a musical family and was a very active singer, composer, and pianist from an early age. Okay, he studied violin as well. Let's get that in there. He had lots of stuff going on. Schubert, however, he didn't live very long. Actually, according to this, I am now living longer than Schubert ever did, right? And I'm not a super old guy. So he didn't, he died rather young for the time. All right. He went to a teacher training college and took up a post at his father's school, but he was not destined to be a teacher and took up composition full time. A sweet-tempered, unassuming man, Schubert had a talent for making friends, and he was surrounded by a circle of writers, artists, and music lovers who called themselves the Schubertians. That's pretty cool. Your group is named after you. They organized musical evenings called Schubertiades, where Schubert would play his new works for gatherings in their homes. The popular baritone and good friend Johann Michael Vogel sang many of Schubert's songs at his concerts. Painter Moritz von Schwind was one of this group of friends, and he painted several pictures that have left a record of these evenings. Schubert's friends promoted his work and lent him money on occasion when his needs were greatest. So we have a new term. Schubertiad. I didn't spell Schubert right. Schubertiad. And that's probably not going to come up as a Schubertiad. Make sure we got that right. Yep. Okay. So what is a Schubertiad? So it is a gathering of Schubert and his artistic friends. They shared artistic ideas with each other. That's a nice idea. It's like a little party. All right. Occasionally, Schubert was able to publish his work, and he worked periodically as music tutor to the family of Count Esterhazy. Where do we remember that name? Thinking. Yes, Haydn worked for the Esterhazys. That seems like ages ago that we talked about that, right? But he lived a quiet life of poverty for the most part. Toward the end of his life, his health was poor, and he died in 1828 at the age of 31. Such a shame. He never achieved any fame or success in his lifetime. Schubert lived in the city of Vienna while Beethoven was still alive, but he was nearly 30 years younger, and as far as we know, they never met. Schubert was one of many mourners at Beethoven's funerals, and before Schubert died himself, he expressed the wish that he be buried near Beethoven. Today, their remains are next to each other in the Zentral Friedhof Cemetery in Vienna. That's nice. Okay. Let's add a little bit there. So, he wasn't famous or wealthy during his lifetime. But he was well loved by those who knew him. That's a nice way of putting that, I think. Okay. Last page for this video. Schubert was the kind of composer for whom the music just seemed to pour out. Like Mozart, he just sat down and wrote what he had in his head. He worked at a fantastic pace. In the year 1815 alone, he wrote 140 songs, 8 of them in one day. By the time he died, he had written 9 symphonies. If Beethoven had died at 31, he would have only written 1. That's something. Yeah, Schubert wrote so much music. We're going to see how much he wrote here in a second. Schubert demonstrated his gift for melody in all his music, but it gave him a particular affinity for the song form. Although his music serves as a transition between the classical and the Romantic periods, his 600 liter songs, liter are songs, his 600 liter put him firmly in the Romantic camp, ranging from little nature songs to dramatic folktale settings of songs of unrequited love. That means love. That means like when you love somebody and they don't love you back. A lot of songs about that. His lieder all show the emotional expressiveness that was so important to the Romantics. In addition to the shorter lieder, Schubert also wrote 2 large song cycles, Die schöne Müllerin and Die Winterreise. I've actually sung Die Winterreise, and it's great. I mean, they're huge song cycles. Song cycles have like 10, 20 songs in them. Okay, we should probably write a little bit about that. So, he wrote, let's say, even though he lived to be just 31, Schubert composed at a rapid pace. He is most famous for his songs, 600, called Lieder. All right, now let's go to our terms. Again, if you want to do this in the same document, that's fine. I like to organize mine in a couple different documents. So a Lied, the plural is Lieder. This is the German, wow, the spelling is not strong this morning. The German, I need to capitalize German, the German name for a song. All right. Schubert also composed a great deal of instrumental music. He wrote many similar works for piano, like smaller works for piano, like his sonatas, character pieces, and dances, as well as 15 string quartets and 1 string quintet. The Trout Quintet for piano and strings is one of the most popular works in the chamber music repertoire. He based the quintet on the melody of one of his songs, the Trout, Di Forella. We're going to actually study that song, as he did the string quartet in D minor, Death of the Maiden. His largest works are the 9 symphonies. The 2 most frequently performed today are the 9th, the Great C major, and the 8th, the Unfinished, for which he only wrote 2 movements and the outline parts of a scherzo. Scherzo is like a quick dance. It took the musical world a long time to recognize Schubert's genius. Most of his symphonies were never performed in his lifetime, and the manuscript for the Unfinished Symphony was not even found until 40 years after his death. So, he wrote 600 Lieder, and many of them are still performed today, very famous. We tend to focus on his songs. He did write symphonies, which are lesser performed, and then he does have some chamber music too. And then he has many piano sonatas and also choral works, choir works. Okay? All right. Although not, let's say, appreciated during his lifetime, Schubert is considered one of the great German composers today. Okay. So that's like our little introduction for the Romantic songs. All right, so we're going to stop the video now, and then we are going to jump right into our listening lab for the Schubert songs. All right, thank you very much.